All right, great. So really quickly, I'm Allan Adler, Managing Partner at Digital Bridge and the creator of GoToEcosystem Movement and EcoOps, and I'll just give everybody an opportunity to quickly introduce themselves.
Will Yafi. I'm the founder and CEO of Tidwit, and we are an enablement, an ecosystem enablement platform.
Hello, my name is Pétré from Colabi, and we're making partner success more predictable.
Otvos with Lean Data. We're a revenue orchestration platform. I joined in RevOps, but in the last couple of weeks, I just moved over to the partner team. So I'm leading business development and alliances. So a little bit of crossover, and thought this would be a good panel for me to be on.
Excellent. Well, I'm super excited because the agenda today is like, what is this EcoOps thing? And my distinguished panel of like buku decades of experience, basically bringing about, transformation and, what are we doing really? Automation and workflow, alignment with the other operations, and how we do analysis and reporting. But at the end of the day, the real reason we're here is because EcoOps is super important. So we did a couple polls. It's hard to read, but basically, how big is the problem that, partner team success is a function of not having our internal act together with respect to how we communicate with other organizations, other processes, and basically 80–90% said it was either the biggest issue or was a top 3 issue. So not having EcoOps is a huge barrier. And what are the biggest barriers to automation? The 2 big outcomes were lack of resources and poor RevOps alignment. And they're very much connected to each other. And so, I've written a lot about this subject because I'm super passionate about the idea that as much as it would be great to do alignment with our CEO, our C-suite, our CPO, our Chief Marketing Officer, our sales department, our CS department, if we don't have the tools and we don't have the processes, we can't actually produce the results. And we certainly can't be efficient, we certainly can't be predictable, and we certainly can't be scalable. So that's the EPS, right? Earnings per share is, how efficient is it, how predictable is it, and how scalable is it? So at the end of the day, when you think about operations, there's kind of like 5 things that you're thinking about. You're thinking about enablement, how to get the right data in people's hands. You're thinking about workflows, how to make sure that the right activities and the races are in place. Someone's doing X, someone does Y for some outcome Z. How to do the data sharing and the integrations. We also talk about integrating our applications. How do you do that? How do you do the analysis, reporting, and then automation and tooling? And ultimately, you have to have all 5 of those pieces in your mind. And what makes it really fun is that you have to do it at the right stage. And so those of you who've been following the GoToEcosystem movement, you know that we've got 4 stages. The launch stage where you're kind of getting your set of initial partners together and you're figuring out how to drive integrations and how to facilitate customer value. The proof stage where you start making some money on that stuff and start getting sales and marketing engaged. The scale stage where you start expanding to multiple segments and start driving ecosystem operations and embed when everything's perfect and you're a business. You're an ecosystem business and you're growing faster and more profitable than anybody else. So this has been around for a while, but what we decided to do is to say, how do we layer ecosystem ops or partner ops on top of that? Because it's one thing to say, go get yourself your partners, but then you need to figure out, like, to that last slide, which tools, which workflows, which automations, which enablement. So we kind of said, let's examine how ecosystem operations needs to interface and interact with the other ops. Now, what makes EcoOps different than every other op is that EcoOps is the one operation that has to talk to all the other ops. Marketing ops can sort of like sit in the box, right? And 9,000 integrations between marketing technologies can do their thing. Sales ops can kind of sit in a box a little bit. Maybe RevOps would argue with that and say, no, sales and marketing has to talk to itself. But at the end of the day, most of the other ops are siloed within their functions. Well, take a look at what EcoOps has to talk to. It has to talk to sales data. It has to talk to marketing data, to CS data, to other data, and all these different things, which include pointers that I don't know how to use. Here it is. It's much more than partner ops because partner ops talks to itself. And one of the things that we suffer from in this industry, and this is a big deal, is that we talk to ourselves way too much. We have an existential threat. Adam and I were talking at dinner last night because we just talk to ourselves. We're sitting around going, we are the most efficient channel. We double the deal sizes. We have the times that cost. It's fantastic. But if nobody else knows about it, oops. So that's why EcoOps is so important, because we have to talk to RevOps. So we have to have that conversation right there with sales ops, that conversation with marketing ops, and we need to have all this stuff aligned. So this panel is really all about how to do the 3 stages of manifesting ecosystem operations. Deciding what to do, That's the, hey, why don't we, for example, have our cross-beam data and our opportunities go into Slack and automatically notify, through a Tidwit link to enable people on what assets they should use. But in order to get that done, you have to first have the business case to do that. Then after you build it, and you decide it, then you have to build it. So first is let's do it, then let's actually build it, and then finally after we build it, we have to operate it. And this is why ecosystem ops is hard. In fact, why any ops is hard. So if you have a partner team and you do not have any operations capability, it's basically saying that you're either going to have to get that from somewhere else or you're going to have to hire for it. But you definitely have to have ecosystem operations chops in your partner team if we're going to solve for this existential threat. Okay, so with that in mind, I am super excited to start a conversation with the panel. And the first question we have is, like automated processes, right? Systems, they need to be enabled to drive this GoToEcosystem thing, right? And that has to happen across a SaaS company. But often we find that most processes are manual and they're done through spreadsheets or over Slack. So what's your experience, and I'd like to go across the panel, and your advice to drive that business case to drive the automation and systemization? Because we just talked about the fact that the business case is hard to drive because people think, I'm not sure I need to do that. So how do we convince RevOps, for example, or product ops to engage us in the business case and make that all happen? So let's start with you, Will. Tell us a little bit about how you drive the business case.
Well, I mean, when the goals are set, and this is something that I think Frie will talk about, when the goals are set for some sort of a go-to-market and objectives, then you have to go and implement it. And I think there's a big chasm between the ideas that some organizations have of launching ecosystems, et cetera, and what tools they have to implement that. And I think that chasm is starting to, to show itself the quicker the market is moving. As one example, if you're tasked with, Jay mentioned this morning that there's, organizations that are signing hundreds of partners a day, if not a month, et cetera, et cetera. So how do you manage all of that? Are you going to manage it on your 1990s architected, tool? Will that work for you? Is that dynamic enough? Is that scalable enough? And so those are the questions that are leading people towards, the EcoOps type of thinking. And I love the word movement, by the way. It's awesome because it is a sort of a movement that takes people from that kind of, I guess, the old-fashioned way of looking at channel into this multi-dimensional way of looking at EcoOps. And that's, it starts with not only a change of mindset, but also a change of tool set that allows them to realize the goals and objectives that they are setting out. And those are very, very, aggressive tool sets.
Yeah, I think it all starts with visibility towards leadership. And the analogy I like to make there is the analogy of an iceberg. Like leadership is only the view on the top of the iceberg, there where the partner revenue is cataloged in your CRM and so forth. But if you would ask the room here how much work that needs to be done to do the work with the partner, and all the processes that need to be done and all the activities to generate that partner revenue, is just so much. And that's often invisible to leadership. And so in order to drive a business case, to convince leadership to invest in automate processes and buy new technology, you need to be able to build that business case based on visibility, like, look how much work that needs to be done. And it all starts indeed where you're referring to, is like create that clarity on all the objectives that you have with your partners and all the activities that need to be done. And once I believe you have that visibility on these activities, you can drive that business case forward.
Does that include things like attribution?
It includes every single part of the, so to speak, silo, and then I think we will talk about that later a little bit, where every single part of the team, so to speak, every data point that needs to be generated in order to drive that end result, the tip of the iceberg, needs to be visible and cataloged. And we need to understand which of these leading indicators drive that partner success. And then we come to a model where basically you can predict partner success. So any data point, basically, if it's marketing, sales, or enablement, or so to speak.
So it sounds like you have to have some North Star outcome that inspires people to want to then make the connections, right?
Yes, and mostly leadership. because they only see, well, show me why you need all these resources and why you need the budget to have this allocation. Well, this is all the work that needs to be done in order to be successful. So, and if you don't have that visibility, it's really hard to make that business case to leadership.
Yeah, I think for me, I know, having come from RevOps, our mantra was always trying to automate as much as we can, right? So I think coming with the idea of, hey, there's a lot of things that are going to be manual, and from a partner ops perspective, we're trying to help automate that. And you make that argument to a RevOps team, they're gonna be invested in trying to help you. So when you lay out like, hey, I got to have these things touch Salesforce. Here's what I needed to do. I want to activate those Slack notifications from these other platforms. You're going to get somebody from RevOps, hopefully, that'll latch onto that and really want to help drive those efficiencies to make sure that a lot of that manual effort that you or anybody on the sales team is going to need gets removed.
So just to add to that, the fact that if you don't have that clear outcome in mind and you can't go to the RevOps and say, we're going to achieve this outcome, this goal, and here's evidence that we can get there, then it's going to be tough to get them to do anything. And that's really one of the big challenges, which you're all talking. What are the objectives? How do we make sure the data is in the right place? How do we automate it so that we don't have to hire more people? Because at some point you can't hire enough people to do operations. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the one thing I would add to that is that the data you don't always have control over that data. And the visibility that's being mentioned can be either within your walls, but it could be outside. And so with EcoOps, you're no longer limiting yourself just to data that's within your walls. But if you have partners that are sharing this kind of nodal architecture that allows you to interchange data, that automatically opens up a huge amount of visibility that you just did not have before, except if it's within your walls. So that is one of the key elements of EcoOps as well.
Yeah, and I think some of it too exposes areas where you do have silos that management may want to remove, right? So if marketing ops isn't talking to sales ops, and you want to get in there and it's like, well, I need the marketing data and the sales data to align in order for us to do things that we can do, it may expose things that may make a larger initiative from a management perspective and help drive that.
Yeah, that's within one organization 100%, but even cross-organizational, which is really where it gets exciting. The cross-organizational data sharing as well.
Yeah, actually, Will, you and I were chatting, and one of the things that we're talking about is like, what's one of the biggest problems we have in this space? Attribution, right? Everyone does last touch attribution. Oh, it was the Google ad. You said, no, wait a minute. The partner added a lot of value. They did all the influence. They did all the work to get us there.
How many inbounds come in that are really driven by partners, and you never know until later stages in the opportunity?
100%.
Happens all the time.
We were talking about that, and one of the questions that we within Tidbit we're trying to answer is, is there a way for you as an organization to know 5 tiers down, as one example, it could be N tiers down, but 5 tiers down, that user came through that distie, that VAR, that corporation, and then you get to the user. With traditional internet tools like Google and those kinds of tools, you just don't have that insight. It's flat. The world is flat to them. You've got, ultimately the last click is what counts. But it shouldn't. Shouldn't the partners be getting credit who led the way up the 5 tiers?
Absolutely, right? Like that's a challenge that I know that we have at Lean Data. We're always struggling to help our partner team understand, what is the attribution of the partner? What is the dollar amounts that they're driving? And as in today's day and age, there's so much is done prior to someone clicking a Contact Me Now website, right? They've talked to partners, they've talked to friends, they've talked to different communities that they're involved in, and they do all that work before, and it's very difficult to say, well, they went to the Contact Us page. Well, what drove them there? And a lot of times, most of the time, it's partners that did it. It's partners that are driving that.
Brilliant. All right, so our next question, I don't have good enough eyesight to read this without standing up. So given that partnering processes at scale requires linking partner processes with RevOps, DevOps, LegalOps, how should EcoOps drive alignment with the other ops to drive engagement? And I think the basic idea is if you're trying to convince RevOps to do something, how do you have the alignment conversation around KPIs, around processes, around data flow? What's your recommendation on how to have that conversation so that the end state is, yes, we will install the Chrome, we'll install the cross-beam integration into Marketo, because then, hey, we could actually do marketing automation with partners.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the mantra that I had at Lean Data for RevOps is, we really own the customer experience, right? So I really made the argument to our management that RevOps at Lean Data needs to encompass everything from marketing ops through sales ops to customer success ops. And so when you have that, when RevOps is responsible for that customer journey, it makes it a lot easier for partner team to come in and say, hey, I need your help. It's okay, it's great. We already know end to end what's going on, so we know where everything fits, we know when everything's going on. So things that the partner team has asked me for in the past is always aligned with what our goals were. So having those silos not there is helpful, I think. And so it's really thinking about how your RevOps team is goaled and compensated, and thinking about how you can align what you need to align how they're getting, what their goals are, so that they match.
So my view is a bit different, because there's a lot of people, and I think at some point somebody had mentioned this, I don't know if it was this conference or the one before, that there's now like 75,000 people, or I don't know how, but it was a huge number, with ecosystems in their title. And one thing that occurred to me when I heard that is that, you know what, there really aren't that many ecosystems, pure, minded and empowered, which is the key word, empowered people that can cut across multiple parts of the organization. So to me, the chief ecosystem officer is the CEO, which it stands for, CEO is Chief Ecosystem Officer, empowering all of these divisions to actually be working with one another. I think revenue, sure, is very important, but you could hit a snag if the partner team or this team doesn't want to coordinate, or if the learning team doesn't want to open up their content, or if this other team. So you really need a top-level support of any ecosystem initiative, and then you get to all these ops that will play along. If you don't do that, you might end up getting snagged in this or that kind of turf fight. And that is something for ecosystem, I guess, practitioners to keep in mind. It's not just about changing a title from reseller to ecosystem chief or whatever it is.
Yeah, very much so, and I really like that idea of CEO, and I think it's kind of a combination of both, and I really like that question, because if you take a step back and you take a look at how organizations are organized in terms of teams, I mean, it all comes back to how companies started to organize after the Second World War, right? We just got used to produce in mass in a standardized way, and we organized ourselves in the teams accordingly in order to be very efficient with all the Lean Sigma and all these kind of methodologies. And so now you arrive at a point that our organizations are not adapted anymore to what we need as organizations to be way more agile. So I believe that there is probably the biggest challenge there, and my advice there would be like, I mean, it took us 70 years, we're stuck in these silos for 70 years. It's not because of a couple of years ago we had this hype around agile working that we now have all solved it. I think still the most agile companies are not agile yet, and I'm not talking about only agile being inside the organization, but also agile with your partners. So that's number one, and the number two would be indeed providing partner management, partner teams, a higher step in the hierarchy in the organization. And I think these two elements are really much needed to really transform and dramatically change the way we're dealing with partnerships and partnership teams.
Okay, last question. So reporting results, I think that's important. So, and it's so critical to building partner team credibility and securing budget. So what advice and best practices should we follow in developing, sharing, reporting, and analytics across the partner team in the overall organization? And I think I'd love, Frie, for you to take the start on that, because I think that's really a big part of what BRM is all about.
It is indeed, and it's, I'm very happy that you brought that up, because it is all about predictability. And just to provide a little bit of context, BRM is a new category that you can call business relationship management, which is basically a crossover between an OKR platform, objectives and key results, and a mutual success plan. Now, making an indirect sales motion predictable, I think, regarding to reporting is exactly what every single one of us needs to do in order to get that presence in the boardroom and the leadership team. And why is that? If you look at 10, 15 years ago, what CRM did with a direct sales motion, using these funnel steps and these funnel ratios in order to make direct sales more predictable, we need to think how we can make indirect sales motions more predictable. And the methodology that I believe is a very good one is using the methodology of OKRs, objectives and key results. And actually the guys from Partnernomics were referring to that yesterday, and I'm a true believer of that. And I think if we are all able to create clarity and visibility on these leading indicators, every single activity that is underneath that iceberg, and we're able to drive that to the boardroom and to our partners, we can really start predicting partner success. And there's really one last thing that I just wanted to touch upon. It's something that just came in yesterday, and we were very excited about that. We actually, we did a test, and one of our largest partners in Europe, Deloitte, actually did an analysis on a set of 400 partners, partner relationships, and they tested correlation between making a plan and achieving results. And it just came in yesterday, and they found a statistical correlation between making a plan and achieving a partner success. I think it's huge.
So I have a slightly different take in terms of data and who owns the data. I think there's always with, particularly the old style of thinking of channel, is the one who controls the data or has an advantage. And I think this old style of thinking is slowly but surely breaking down. Not that you want to give your data away to your competitors and stuff, but you sure as heck want to share them with your partners. And when you are sharing partners, there are architectural implications to how you share the data because there's compliance issues. Here you go back to ecosystem architecture. Is there, and the systems that you might want to take into account as you're deploying, EcoOps technology to realize your goals, are the tools that I am deploying, will they allow me to be able to securely and from a privacy perspective share information with my partners without this data being abused? I think it's a huge opportunity for our industry, massive, massive. There's a huge problem right now in the internet as it was conceived by the Googles and Facebooks and all of these, because to share information meant you had to give up privacy. Ecosystems is the way to actually share information without giving up privacy. And so I would definitely encourage everybody in this room and anybody who's seeing this video to look at technology that allows you to share information, share knowledge without giving up on privacy. And I think pure play ecosystem solutions are the way to go with that.
You probably also add be doing that efficiently.
To do it efficiently at scale. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, a lot about, just recently for us, it's pulling that data that we have in all these different systems into a data warehouse, and then doing the types of things that you're talking about, sharing that information, making sure that the privacy controls and governance are in place so that you can share that information out. But really the power is to not leave it in these different systems, but to pull it into one warehouse and then have a good data analyst, someone that can go in there and really put it into something like Tableau or a BI tool to be able to present it out. That's where I've seen a lot of success myself.
Great, awesome. Okay, so we are excited to talk a little about something, but before anybody wants to get in touch with any of us, DM on LinkedIn is good?
Yeah, sure. Awesome.
All right, great. All right, so we have a special prize for you. We have written a lot of stuff on EcoOps, and it's all available to you for free if you click on that QR code and download your own version of the GoToEco Library, which happens to be run on Tidwit. So you get the benefit of getting our library in what we call the most powerful composable enablement solution out there, which is Will's fantastic architected technology. And once you get that, you'll get every single piece of content we've created in the last year. It's about 500 assets. And super excited that you guys get it. You can collaborate on it. You can search the data. You can share the data. You can make your own data. You can create this. And a number of you have already used it. And we've already got, since we launched it on Friday, pre-release, we already have over 100 people who have signed up. So
100 nodes.
100 nodes, yeah. 100 companies, actually. 100 companies amongst us. So.
And it's free.
And it's free, and it runs on your tech. And next year we'll be announcing how it also includes all of these EcoOps integrations.
That'll be the next panel.
Exactly.
Totally.
So thank you very much. We actually ended 29 seconds before we're over, so now I can talk really slowly.
We were actually
Yeah,
over.
we were 29 seconds.
No, 30 seconds over.
good.
Have a good one. Thank you so much.